Falls is known, of course, for its waterfall. But did you know there are many other waterfalls located in the region and a short car drive away? Some of them a little bit of a trek to get to. But on this particular video, we're going to take you to as many of the other waterfalls in the Niagara region that we can take you to that are worth visiting. So come along as we explore the Niagara region and all the waterfalls it has to offer. There are many other waterfalls in the Niagara region that deserve a little bit of a highlight, as they're only a short drive away, and some of them an adventurous walk or hike to get to. Some of them don't lack as well in beauty, as you're going to find out in this video. So let's go and explore the Niagara region and all the waterfalls, or at least as many as we can, that it can offer on this video. It's not an easy journey currently, as we start during the spring thaw. In fact, it is still winter. It's the first day of March break, and we are in Short Hills Provincial Park. I in fact came here several years ago to shoot a music video, of which I'm going to include some coverage of, because it's not too easy to get down to the base of Swayze Falls, especially at this time of year with my not so appropriate footwear. I wouldn't necessarily recommend coming here at this time of year if you're not prepared accordingly, as the paths are not cleared and they're quite slippery, but we're making the best of it as we can. The first location is the magnificent Swayze Falls, a 15-meter waterfall located here in Short Hills Provincial Park, as mentioned, and definitely one of the more stunning ones. Now, it only takes about 5 minutes to get to Swayze Falls from the parking area that my car is currently located at. Fortunately, there are many paths that lead to the same direction, as the falls are located in the center of the park. The park itself is very beautiful. I've never been here in the summer, so I may have to come back soon enough in order to experience it. We're going to continue our journey now down towards Hamilton, which will be the terminus of our explorations of the waterfalls here in southern Ontario, Niagara region. And the next one is coming. This is the parking area of the Short Hills Provincial Park. There's many parking areas, as a matter of fact, and they do feature some washrooms. Now, they are public restrooms out in the middle of the woods, so I will leave it at that as far as the quality, but it's actually pretty clean in there, considering some of the experiences I've had in the past. It's very easy to find this area on Google Maps. In fact, it's quite accurate, so if you're ever interested in coming, the parking is not abundant, so definitely time out correctly when you want to visit, so that way you do get a spot. Although you can park on the road if necessary. Our next waterfall is not an easy one to get to, particularly because the power plant, or the old mill up top of where we are, or on top of the escarpment, is closed due to construction, and is actually a power plant, or a small power plant, for the local area. This is Dessous Falls. Now, there are two waterfalls that I know of that are located here and not too easy to get to. In the background here, we of course have the Bruce Trail, as always, at a small little entryway next to the highway where we entered. Google Maps, in fact, is not the friendliest when it comes to finding this place, so we're now entering Short Hills once again on our way to discover Dessous Falls. Now, from what I understand, there was actually a small little parking outlet at the side of the road there to get to this part of the Bruce Trail to see this particular site, but I parked all the way up on the residential area up top the hill to our left, because parking anywhere else in this area, at least legally, is not easy to find. Well, we're all the way at the top of the hill now, basically. I'm not a Scooby where we are. Do not hear any waterfalls. Maybe I do, I don't know. We definitely have some disused tributary waterfalls. It certainly seems like we're nowhere near where we're supposed to be. However, on the maps, it does say that we are close, so we'll see. Somehow I really misjudged the trail and I came from the cliffside above, which is definitely not recommended, but we found it finally. So on my return trip, I'm definitely going to follow the river, because there are some people here that clearly got here much easier than I did, because I'm covered in dirt right now. But we made it. Very nice waterfall. Now I'm doing this a little bit later than the other waterfalls, so it's not the most impressive that we've seen on this tour, but if you want to, and you're, say the place upstairs is actually open and parking is available, I'm sure it's much easier to get here, say at a busier time of year than I'm coming now. What's the thaw? Had to do it. Dessous Falls. Finally discovered it. The area that I climbed down to get here. An adventure on its own, that's for sure. Wish I recorded it. The conditions being what they are here, this has not been an easy one. It took almost 20 to 25 minutes to get to the falls, climbing down cliffs. Even the official route is not without some pretty treacherous paths and a bit of a rock climb or a hillside climb as well, or descent, depending on which way you go. This has definitely been the most difficult to reach. You could certainly spend a lot of time here in Short Hills exploring the whole area. But it's time for our next destination. We are now in Rockaway Conservation Area, and we are on a bit of a treacherous walk. This is definitely not a path, but because of how amazing and spectacular the waterfall is here, that you're going to see in a moment, I had to take a short path to get to it as quick as I could, or can, to the base. Especially without boots on. Not smart. So hopefully I'll make it down there. I also have no idea how I'm going to make it back up. But again, not recommended. But this is kind of how I explore. It's actually not too bad. There we go. There's actually several waterfalls in this area. We're just covering 2 of them on this particular visit. The upper and lower Rockaway Falls. So we are now at the base of the upper Rockaway Falls, which the parking area, which I'll show you, is actually on top of. And I'm shocked about how spectacular they are and the fact that I've never been here before. The falls are just beyond here. You might see some people over there just coming back this way. The amount of water that you see here, you can get an idea of what we have in store here. And no, what you've seen so far is not the falls. They are still just a little bit around the bend here. You have a lot of cascades that lead out, I guess, towards the lower falls, which are behind us. They're ready for the big show, because this is quite a waterfall to be seen. I thought this bridge was closed, but apparently it's not. It didn't take long to get from all the way up there. The vantage point I'm going to end this part of the vlog from. This is kind of the extent of where we can go. As you can see, it really does become just like a dedicated gorge slash cliffside. A narrow chasm leading to the falls, which you can see in the background. Well, this is as far as we can go on this side. Taking safety into account, I could probably climb a bit over this way, but it's not really gonna give you that much of a vantage point. Not recommending coming down here by any means. So we've been roaming through this path through the conservation area now for about 10 minutes. Up top a hill here. I didn't take the riverside path because I figured it might be a better outlook to see the falls first from. But I don't even know what we're going to see here, so you're discovering it with me along the way. And yeah, we do have to go down, but I can clearly hear them in the background. So let's see what we got. Arrived at the lower falls. It's actually aptly named, despite them being lower down the river. They are much lower to the ground compared to the other set at the top. So you'll see there is a man-made structure in the background here. It looks like there was a mill here at one point. It's long since been demolished. And now nature has reclaimed this territory. It's almost unnoticeable other than the fact that that wall still exists. You see it's a nice little, I think they're called cataracts or crevasse inside there. It wasn't too hard to get down here. It's just a little bit of a, admittedly, I'll admit in the drier months, it'll definitely be easier to get, say, on this side than what I've done to get down here. And they do continue to cascade down this river area as it bends to the right. So that's the Rockaway Falls area. Quite impressive. You could easily spend more than a few hours just taking in the surrounding territory, which, because I'm doing so many falls in one day, I just don't have the time for, unfortunately. Make sure you follow your trails. Now it seems like I've lost mine. There are trail indicators on trees throughout this area. Can't be that far off the path. Here's one of the trail indicators, as I mentioned, and you can see them clearly marked. If you don't see the path itself, say in the winter time or so, maybe even in the fall, you can see it on the trees. These parks are well maintained. Obviously, the price that they are charging for people to park at the top is to maintain these trails. Before I leave this area, I have to mention that there's yet another set of waterfalls here, or another waterfall, or really a nice little drop to it, about 3 to 4 meters, with a cascade leading to it here. The difference with this one is you can actually get into the waterfall area, because I'm standing right in the river itself here. Get right up to the actual base of it. If you are to come here, you definitely want to wear the proper footwear, for one. If you're going to want to get the best shots or the best light on the falls themselves for all of these falls, you're generally going to have to come in the morning or before the afternoon, because they all face eastward, so you're not going to get any light really like you're going to see in this vlog unless you come later in the day, when generally the light is behind the falls. Doesn't make for the best shots necessarily, so at that time it's also not really great or nor recommended, because you will have to contend with less people possibly being around, which means outside the deer poop that you have to avoid, you also have to worry about coyotes and potentially black bears in this area too. I have spent a little over an hour here, and I haven't even really touched the surface of this entire area. Now, there is some very treacherous drops here. And, you know, this time of year, there's no guarantee that this area won't slide away, but there are trees rooted in the area, so that's reassuring. You can kind of see the falls from this perspective, but unfortunately they're kind of all the way tucked over there. So we're gonna go closer to the falls themselves and see if there's a path that we missed, because it is a spectacular drop over there. So here you have the parking area that will get you right next to the falls. astounding. I'd say that is one of the most impressive waterfalls, if not the second best that I've witnessed in Ontario without question. And maybe in the top 10. It is incredible down there. I only wish I could get closer. But we've got to move on. Let's get to our next destination. Just a few minutes drive from our last location, Rockaway Falls, you have Louth Falls. Fortunately, there's no $9 charge to park here. It's a very small lot, but a fairly impressive waterfall nonetheless. While you can't get to the base too easily, you can, however, get to the top of the falls and get a nice vantage point, including a nice view of this river leading. And there is the top. Definitely one of the easier ones to get to so far on this journey, so don't miss it if you're in the area. It's just around the corner, as I mentioned. Louth Falls, pretty impressive. Our next location is actually a very quaint conservation area known as Balls Falls. There are two waterfalls in this location, a lower and an upper, and from what I have understood, or at least seen so far, a very impressive waterfall. So this is the original Balls family home, which was constructed in 1846 and opened as a general store and living quarters for the family for the local village of Port Elgin. And as the information board said, Port Elgin unfortunately did not realize as a town successfully, so the store eventually closed. And the Ball family's son, Mortimer, inherited the grounds, and in the 1870s it was converted into sitting rooms and offices up until the early 1900s, of which what you see now has been preserved as such. You can tour the inside. It's not currently open, but we are here pretty much off season. It's not the summer yet, obviously. We have some interesting preserved grounds, so I think this is definitely worth a visit at another point for a different type of vlog. Well, I waited until I walked up to this wall to get a good look at it. And yes, that is what you would call, or I would call, an impressive waterfall. I might just take a moment to take this one in. That is stunning, to say the least. One of the last destinations on this trip has a very similar sort of outcropping of, or a basin. This is very impressive. In fact, so much so I think I might get a little slow motion of this one too for you. You can kind of see why they use this area for a sawmill and other industries. Now, I included that placard or that signage for those of you curious about the history of this area, because it actually goes long before the house that I mentioned earlier, all the way back to the War of 1812, as a matter of fact. Our viewing area is a little bit muddy, I will admit. Well, what do you get when you are close to the spring thaw? You have a little wee waterfall on the other side trying its best to catch up with the sheer ferocity. You really feel the vibrations and the tremor from this waterfall. It is impressive, I will say. I take it back. I said that I had already seen his second most impressive waterfall in Ontario. Well, Balls Falls now takes that title quite easily. This has already been quite a journey, and we're not even, well, we just passed the third of it. So this will be a multi-day presentation as I go through all these waterfalls. I must say I'm quite stunned. Quite the gorge down there. It is quite far down there. Yeah, we have a few more to cover hopefully today before the sun goes down. It's about a little over an hour and a half before that happens. But there's just so much to discover here. I didn't know that this place was so rich in history, and preserved history at that. As mentioned on the placard, if you didn't read it, this was a settlement that was significant in the War of 1812. There's going to be a lot of coverage or exploration of that particular conflict now 200 years on from when it occurred. Although definitely check out our History of Leviathan video if you're interested in a little bit of a touch on that, as we certainly do cover that in a humorous fashion in that video as well. The one reason I've come here at this time of year, or at least this particular moment, is because it is the warmest day of 2025 here in Ontario, or at least in the Toronto and Niagara region. And we've had some pretty significant snowstorms this season. Thus, as you can see, the thaw is significant. So the flow of water is at amongst its highest as it will be all year. We are on a side path following the river to our next destination. It's not exactly a safe path, but again, we are here before the beginning of the season anyway. The visitor center is barely open. There's a few visitors around here. It is if you don't mind muddy shoes, this is a really great walk or journey that we've partaken on here. We are on our way to Upper Balls Falls, the less impressive of the two from what I understand. Now there is somebody crazy enough to actually go down to the base on the cliffside. I do not have the footwear to even consider that. However, we have the old sawmill, however, of which we are now in the basement of, and I almost already fell, which I think gives you a little bit of a view of the base. At least we'll check it out. No shortage of history here in the Niagara region, that's for sure. And you gotta go off the beaten path to find it. Most of it free of charge, especially if you take a bike here. Actually made sense to come here at this time of year because with the trees not covered in leaves, you get an excellent view as much as you can of the falls themselves. And I don't know, comment below. Might have to take back yet again my rankings because the upper falls are almost, if not as equally impressive as the lower. So comment below if you're familiar and tell me what you think is the better of the two. There's certainly a lot of them, or at least in this area, to rank, and just going these two, it's definitely worth coming to visit. Very impressive, great sight lines as well. So our adventure will continue as long as I make it. We are but a few meters from the Balls Falls Conservation Area, but this private road is part of the Bruce Trail, so we're allowed to walk on it, and we've had to leave our car behind on the main road. And the reason why we're doing so is because there is another falls, of course, ahead called Quarry Springs Falls. So we're just going to do this journey. It's about the same distance down the road as the conservation area was, so it's not too far. Hopefully we'll find it. Private land, hiking permitted through, courtesy of the landowner to use at your own risk. So we are technically on someone's property. Most of these properties are just vineyards anyway. But as you can see, we are on a trail of sorts that's well used. And you know, and I really didn't cover it, and I should now. I kind of, at the Rockaway point, briefly mentioned it, but you'll see the white marking on the tree here. That indicates that you're on the trail if you didn't already know by the clearing on the ground. Comment below if you want to see me further explore the Bruce Trail, as I am fascinated by it. I, in fact, have even more history associated to it because I shot a film at another location further behind us on the trail itself. And as I go through this area, I'm really just finding myself fascinated by the history of this region and over 200 years. Probably more than that, of second settlers development. You can see what I mean by vineyards. It's a vineyard down there, quite massive one. And we do also have a major series planned checking out a lot of these vineyards. Maybe not to drink at them, or maybe just a tasting, a sampling, a true sommelier version of tasting what the Niagara wine region has to offer. But just off of this trail, you get some quite interesting vistas to check out. So yeah, definitely thinking there'll be a lot more nature in the channel this year. It's about time, I'd say. Still don't hear any falls though. This is obviously not one of the more visited ones. I'm also surprised that we haven't run into any stealth campers along the way. So if you do come to these areas, not that stealth campers are a threat, but please be careful. Take your time, be aware of your surroundings, wear the proper equipment. The latter of which I will not make that same mistake. we should be getting close, so we'll see you over by the falls. So I kind of just wanted to reassure those of you that are watching this with true intentions of coming to these places, where exactly you might finally get to the falls themselves here, as we are getting close now, because we can certainly hear them in the background. In fact, there's a marker here just ahead, as you can see, black and white marker. I think that means I'm going to put up a little graphic to give you an idea of the markers and what they mean, as there was some signage earlier. As per usual, I just go right into these vlogs sometimes and I don't prepare entirely, but I'm certainly learning a lot about hiking here, and we've now found Quarry Springs Falls. Fortunately, it looks like the ground could kind of give away here, so I'm doing my best to be careful, not to take any risks, because I'm not sure if that's solid ground below me or just an outcropping of dirt. So you have a small bridge here that goes over the river leading into the falls that you can cross. It's pretty sturdy, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. I crossed it, no problem at all. Nice little falls. If you want a sort of like an exclusive look at a waterfall in the area, well, this is probably one of the better ones to come to, because yeah, there's literally no one here. I think I've seen some coyote poop. But other than that, pretty good adventure here so far. So, all right, let's get back to the car. Hopefully I'll be able to have time before sundown to get one more waterfall in. The one after that I have scheduled is a bit of a trek, or at least a drive from here. So I'm not so sure I'll get there in time. Another little tidbit, most of these areas close as of sundown. So we're about a little over 45 minutes from that now. Definitely plan accordingly. I spent half the day already exploring these falls, and as I said, I'm only now about at the midway point of this journey. Quite a long one, but definitely worth it. Mercifully, since we are parked on a pretty much non-public area here at the side of the road here in Grimsby now, we've crossed over into another town. We are here for 30 Mile Creek Falls. Blink and you might miss it, so definitely look for this sign here, as I definitely passed the initial entrance on my way up here. But if you see this little trail, under the hidden driveway sign, I'll try to get a better exposure of that for you. You have this little entranceway off of the road, and we'll explore. A short trip down this path. It looks like it's very short because there's a road on the other side and a house on the other side. Also, you can hear the falls in the distance, so we're going to go down this path and we'll discover for the first time 30 Mile Creek Falls. Quite a dirty sign, but if you want to pause your video here and see some detailed information about this particular spot on the Bruce Trail, Hundreds of rivers come down the escarpment, as it says. Well, we're not covering maybe a dozen of those. There used to be a mill of some sort. So they do go down quite a ways. This is a cascading falls. You can see it's traveling on a step pattern all the way down to the valley below. The most fantastic portion of the falls, definitely this section here. Conditions are a little too slippery, and there's obviously snow and stuff and ice, so I won't be going down this particular cliffside to capture any other imagery, but it is impressive. Doesn't look like much when you first get to it, but it actually is much larger than you would think. And it doesn't end there, as further up the path here you can see there is another waterfall section. More cascading falls. The most impressive section, however, is definitely this lower section. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a path that leads over easily to that other section, so just gonna have to leave that sort of shaky long shot for what it is. I think there's enough light. We might be able to make our last waterfall before we end this portion of our tour of the falls. So let's get on to it, hop in the car and get to our next destination. And that's it. At sacrifice of an incredible sunset shot that I wanted to get, I said no, we can't turn back because we're just going to manage to get Beamer's Falls. First North Grimsby Scouts. So I don't know, this chain link fence, we're just gonna go across because clearly we are at the spot that we need to be, as you can hear them in the background. And they certainly sound large. In fact, I'm seeing them now, and wow. Unassuming parking area, really nothing really of a parking area, just a spot on the side of the road. Next to this bridge you have this incredible waterfall. Again, please, at the end of this, guys, if you want to rank what you think are the best locals, because I'm stymied, I'm dumbfounded. It's beautiful. There is even a smaller section, another area where the falls go. However, that is not as impressive as the ones behind us, so won't really cover that. And there's no real decent way to get down there anyway. Obviously, like I said, the thaw, it's going to keep going on for the next month. So there's a lot more water probably coming through this section of the falls, or this waterfall, than normal. But wow, it is immense. You can feel the power. You can smell just the natural. There's a bit of a sulfur smell down here. little unusual, probably because of all the farmland up top. But wow, really impressed by Beavers Falls. That's no better spot to end this part of our journey as we carry on north to capture a couple more waterfalls in the impressive Niagara/Hamilton region. So join me still as we do this all again on another day. But for this first section, I thank you all for joining me. And as always, thank you for dropping in.